Hello, guys. We are today joining for a casual chat between some of us Estonians about the Great Confinement, this time that is being felt, experienced, walked through by millions of people around the world. And for sure, we have a lot to say. So we hi to who's here, Cerise. Hi.
Hi.
And Leila and Gian from Panama. Well, they are from Europe and South Africa, but they're living in Panama. Cerise is in South Africa and I'm in Mexico. So I'll start by sharing a little bit of my personal experience throughout this. I was already in some kind of quarantine because I had my first daughter being born in the beginning of the year. So it's been like an extended quarantine, so to speak. And it's been also like a weird time to be starting to become a mother and being now not in a situation where I see life passing by and things happening around me, but now the whole world is in a quarantine situation. And that has been a very interesting situation because to me, part of a lot of the things that I've worked throughout the years with the Destiny process, for example, is letting go of these desires of wanting to go there and buy this and, like satisfying all of these kind of distractions in a way. And my life was already quite simple. So to me, not a lot has changed in that sense. But I do miss a lot going out and seeing people, seeing stores open and seeing just life as normally happens. And to me, it's also bringing up the question, how am I going to present this world to my child? Like saying, hey, there used to be people around here. There used to be stores. There used to be more movement. How am I going to explain this whole situation, this whole confinement happening? But I'm taking it day by day, as most of us are. But I do have to say that there hasn't been really fear about the virus situation as much. My worry concern is more leading into the economic aspect of it. What about you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Jan. In South Africa, we've also got a lockdown that's been implemented since the 27th of March. The number of cases in South Africa at the moment is low compared to other countries. I think we're sitting just over 3,000 cases. For me, not a lot has changed as well because I live on a farm, and with rural living, when you're far from town, going to the shops, for example, is not something you have the luxury of doing every day because it's too far, it costs too much, and it takes too much time. But generally speaking, South Africa has, I think, maybe a little bit kind of different considerations. I know a lot of other countries have it as well, but what I've been experiencing is I've been seeing stories of people being stopped by police blocks and told to turn around and go back home. They're not allowed to go to the shop because it's not the closest shop to them, and people being arrested, people being beaten up by the police or by the military. So stuff like that has been happening, like this abuse of power, if you can call it that, by the police and the military, who are supposed to be trying to manage the lockdown. But at the same time, a lot of South Africa it's almost impossible to have a lockdown because of the living conditions of people. It's big families living in very, very small rundown houses. They're sharing communal water taps. They're sharing communal toilets. So, and public transport, you can't get around not using public transport for a lot of people. They can't afford cars. So public transport's still happening. The small minibus taxis, they're still going around. They're supposed to be limiting the number of passengers. That doesn't always happen. And I suppose South Africa is a little bit like the wild, wild west, where anything goes. And there's a lot of laws that are in place, but not all of them are implemented equally across the country. So there's a lot that people get away with. And I think the biggest concern here for everyone in South Africa and probably everywhere in the world is, like Marlen mentioned, that economic aspect of not being able to survive, because now you can't work all of a sudden, and in a place that already had so much poverty and that already had such a high unemployment rate, and that so many people, even in the middle class, don't have savings, to not be able to earn an income and to have to rely on the government that was already overburdened before all of this. Public health care was already overburdened. It's really, really, really stressful for millions of people just in this country. People can't pay rent, they can't buy food. The helplines are overloaded. It takes at least 10 days before a food parcel gets to a family, for example, if it even happens. So at the moment, there's a lot of tension. There's looting happening of shops. And interestingly enough, the government decided to ban alcohol and cigarette sales, which I don't think a lot of countries have done, but it's been done in South Africa. There's been a lot of break-ins of liquor stores. A lot of liquor has been stolen, but the idea behind it is that it discourages social gatherings. So that's kind of the gist of what's happening here at the moment.
I can simply say that a lot of similar stuff is happening here in Mexico. Here we don't have any authority kind of saying, you know, you have to stay at home. Everything is voluntary. The government has said no one is going to impose that. There's not going to be any kind of medical martial law or military one or anything like that. So I'm very thankful for that, because it's not like I have policemen around me saying you can't go out for a walk, which I do every single day. There is a lot of problems right now coming with unemployment, of course, as everyone else in the world. And generally here, there is that sense of the government is hiding numbers. Probably things are worse than they are, because they want to keep a good image, and a lot of political aspects going on there, which add up to the stream of fear and uncertainty around the whole situation. But in general, something that I've noticed is people kind of dividing themselves. Some people that are completely locked down in fear, paranoia about the virus, and others that are more into this is something that has to do more with the economic situation, a reset, maybe a complete shutting down of the economy to create something new. So what's your perspective, Gian and Leila?
Hey, I just unmuted myself because Caesar was a little bit loud. And so, yeah. Well, from our experience here, just to share a bit as well, and I'm going to give a direct experience from our direct environment. Obviously, here in Panama, it's in a small town with about 14,000 people. So we can see things move quite fast in terms of rules, regulations, quarantine time, because it's a very small amount of people that you have to manage. So people are more, you know, quickly into it. And yeah, we live about 1 kilometer outside of town, and we have a quarantine where we can only go out 3 times a week for guys. So on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And then the other days, except Sunday, is for women.
No, Sunday everyone stays home.
Yeah, except Sunday.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and you can only go out for 2 hours on your day. So
at a specific time,
yeah,
that corresponds with the last number of your ID or passport.
So for example, I can go out today at 5:30 until 7:30. That's it. Then I have to sit until my next day, until that same time. Then I can go out again. You have to wear a mask if you want to enter any shop.
No, now it's from today. You have to wear a mask just
Oh.
going outside.
So now you have to wear a mask if you're going out. And you have to wash your hands before you go into any store. They all have a spray bottle, and they even have some places where you have to wash your shoes. You know, you dip your shoes in like a cleaning chemical. Yeah, and you have to stand 1 meter apart everywhere you are. You cannot be close to someone. The police is also on the roads everywhere. They check everyone. They make their sirens go like, whoop, whoop, you know, to warn people and to keep their presence. So that's here in Panama where we are. And it's quite interesting because just last week or this week, they are now starting to ask for donations where people have to give money because of certain businesses that's been closed for, you know, a month now, more, 5 weeks. And the people they employ need money. So they are now starting to ask for donations from those that still have work and have money to give to these families so that they can survive for another 3 months. That's their estimation at this point. So you can really see where the government is looking at discontinuing for their 3 months. You know, they don't have to say that, but it's how they're planning things that you can see how they're projecting already their direction. So for me, it's the question is, how long are we going to be in quarantine? And with these circumstances, because I'm fine with it in terms of, you know, dealing with myself, my process, and what we work with here in our house.
And we have an income.
And we have an income, you know, where most people don't. If you consider, when I say most, it's people that do labor work. They do day-to-day jobs as well, because Panama is also a third world country, just like Mexico and South Africa. You know, so a lot of people rely on a day-to-day movement. And here you can see a lot of farmers, a lot of people that used to, you know, do gardening or get paid per day to move some groceries or pack some shelves. You have a lot of people that suddenly not doing this, and they cannot afford even a week of quarantine. So there has been riots, breaking into shops, people stealing things, but it hasn't been violent, you know,
Yeah.
which I see in South Africa can get violent, for example. Here it's just more, they need something, they break in and they take their stuff and they leave. So that is a difference. So I don't feel that much pressure, if you can say, how people are responding to this that really needs food and stuff. But the government as well here is different. They actually give nice food parcels and they deliver stuff to communities in need where they can. But how long can you keep that up? How long is that viable? Because you also have the farmers, you have the farms, they're functioning at a lower level. And there's a lot of other things that I'm not going to share on here, that how they are treating the farmers, you know, and things like that, and the food supply. So yeah, for example, just here outside the road, when I have to go out, there's 2 guys standing there, police, one with a shotgun, you know, all masks, and they check you. So they make sure that you are going out at your time, and if they find you're not, they arrest you. So that's here. That is what everyone knows. Everyone's aware of that. And Panama is one of the countries that has taken the most
Restrictive measures.
measures. And
They also banned alcohol.
They banned alcohol, you know, so no one has been able to get alcohol for 5 weeks now. That's interesting. But we can still get cigarettes here. Unlike South Africa, I see they banned cigarettes and alcohol. So yeah, I wonder how many people are going through withdrawal, you know, and a lot of ways that they used to suppress themselves or deal with their reality that they can. So also what has increased is domestic violence. So they have opened facilities and online support counseling, because if you have a family member at home that used to drink alcohol and pass out, to suppress himself. He's now at home with nothing, and he's taking it out on his family. So you have to consider the consequences as well of how certain things could play out and are playing out, and how it's affecting families internally. And then if you get stressed with no food, no economic security, no work in the future, no work right now, people can go crazy. And this is the points that those of us who have money still don't have to deal with right now. But I don't know how long the economy and the world can handle this just for 3 months. How long can we be okay? And yeah, that's currently the update here. I will give over to Leila, see what she has to say.
Well, I suppose my experience has been kind of like Cerise. Like, I'm used to not going out much. South Africa was also a great preparation ground for this stuff, like having no electricity, not being able to go out. You learn, like, crisis becomes the norm in a way. Yeah, and then we moved here recently. We've only been here, what?
I've been here 4 months.
I've been here 3 months, 1 month in quarantine. And I'm used to not going out much. So to me personally, there is not much of a difference. And I suppose in a way, what I see is that, like how motherhood is like, you can prepare yourself for it, but at the same time also not. And it's like this crisis is here, whether you're ready or not, and everyone is learning to deal with it in their own way. One point that stood out for me in terms of the whole virus thing, like I highlighted, was that I, in a way, had been like sleepwalking, kind of like with my eyes a little bit closed, and you think that your actions don't have any real consequence, that you can just keep doing whatever you want because there's so much time and nothing bad has been happening. Where when this coronavirus came, it's in a way like a wake-up call, like stuff does happen and it can affect you, it can affect the whole world. What that opened up is this kind of, and I think everyone in a way is facing that, is this sense of like invulnerability, where you think that everything's going to be okay and you don't have to do anything about it. And now suddenly the whole world is in crisis. Everyone's going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you also have this whole polarity of like, oh my God, I'm actually so incapable, so powerless, and my body will not be able to handle a virus. Now I must just freak out. So you have this like polarity of, on the one hand, feeling so comfortable, and on the other hand, now feeling so frantic in a way, where I found for me, it's not as bad as I think it is, and it's also not as good as I think it is. And I think after a month of lockdown, everyone is kind of realizing like, okay, like initially everyone had to panic, right? And now everyone's going more and more like, wait, like, was this whole lockdown actually the best initial response? Because like we've gotten over the panic phase, and now you're looking more at things long term. What do we actually want to do, and what can we do? So some of the points I've been looking at.
Yeah, I think that a lot of, at least as far as I've seen, a lot of people are starting to question more how the world has been structured and how our society has been structured, because seeing now how fragile it is and how easily people who have been marginalized and ignored can just kind of fall off the edge into states of complete desperation. And it's not happening in some far off country anymore. It's happening like all around everyone. This this crisis of I'm not going to make it through the month. I can't feed my family. It's like the stark reality. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing more and more and realizing more and more that this has been the reality for a very, very long time, as far back as any of us have been alive, at least. And now, hopefully, it's a point of, okay, now we have to see the reality of our creation and really decide, is this really what we want? Like, is this it? We have all of this potential, all of this opportunity. We have this gift of life, and this is what we choose to do with it. And I mean, obviously the reality is that not everyone's going to address it that way. Not everyone's going to experience it or work with it that way. But I think for those of us who are looking at it in that way, the more we have these discussions and say, you know what, things could actually be a bit different. We could make a world that's actually nice to live in for everyone. That sounds like a great idea, right?
I can totally agree with that. I want to take on that point of a lot of people waking up to that reality and perhaps searching and investigating more about what has been happening that was simply like a blindfold that has been taken out. Not everyone will go into it, as you mentioned. That's very relevant, not to impose that reality of opening eyes to possibilities and so forth. I think that this is like a very distinctive moment where each one will choose, do I want to just go back to normal after this is over? Or is this like a necessary pause for me to be part of something more, recreating, reinventing the society that we want to live in? And this cannot happen if we don't give ourselves that notch of, hey, you know, this isn't the way that I want to keep living, not in this quarantine, not in this lockdown. We have to do something. And a lot of people interpret this as having to rebel or civil disobedience or something like that. No, this is about standing up within ourselves. Like, this is a personal decision that each one makes every single day when you wake up. Who do I want to be during this time? And not so much looking at the moment when, okay, everything will go back to normal, but what strengths will I require to become a person that once that this perhaps eases a little bit, and if it doesn't, it doesn't matter, because one becomes that person that says, no, I won't sit in fear. I won't just comply to remaining trapped like this for a longer time. Whatever is needed of me to become that person that can stand in a better future, I have to start creating it now. To me, it's a matter of character, building that character if one doesn't have it yet, working with that in this pause of reality, because we will need a lot of us. We have kind of been working on this for over a decade now, and I think that it was a preparation, as Leila said, in a way. Perhaps it was South Africa, perhaps it has been this whole process, but to me, it's very relevant to not invite, perhaps inspire other people to realize that sometimes all of the news and things happening try to suppress that character, that willingness, that strength, that courage to say, I'm going to stand up no matter what, even if we have to live in a 1984 society. What is it like, or what would it mean to be in that condition and still be a free person, someone that can be that person that affects the whole, no matter if you are caged and in a lockdown? And this is something that Leila also said, how it's very relevant to affect the whole. This is something very particular that Destiny also understand. We have created this whole reality and the whole play out of things. It's not something that we have to blame onto others and create this war against those that play the world at their own will. That's very relevant, to always take it back to self and realize this is here for a reason, for the whole humanity. So that's why, to me, it's really not about the virus and that whole thing, because this is much more. This is like a crossroads, yeah, that's the word, where some will decide to just go blind with their blindfold on, like, oh, okay, back to normal, back to my distractions and so forth. And a lot of people, I'm really happy to see people waking up, from family members that are saying, like, you know, there's something more to this. Something that you were talking to me about 10 years ago is now resonating a little bit more on how the world works. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Is that coming from my mother's friend who is like a hardcore Catholic? Wow. And I'm really excited about it, to be honest. So I prefer to be that kind of person that is like, wow, that aunt told you that information and they're seeing that. Oh my God, that's great. So I'm like, yes, kind of like seeing who's standing up in that sense. And it doesn't have to relate to information only, but simply to be people that say, you know, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to be that better person. I'm not bending down. I'm not going to just wallow in fear. It is unfortunate for some people I know that are in that route, but then I've also learned to let go. Like, okay, it's their life, their process, their decision. So this, to me, this pulse of reality is like that moment of deciding who do I choose to be in from this moment on to the future that is unknown, uncertain. But as my partner says, you know, the future is created right now. So focus on who you decide to be right now. Yeah. What
Can I say something?
Go for it.
All right, so for me, I would like to say that I think, first of all, it is the illusion of normal or normalcy that people will return to. Because if we look at what was normal, there was already poverty, there's war, there's corruption, there's all this shit in the world, and that is not normal. So now, obviously, through the coronavirus, it's highlighted, and if we are going to say, oh, I'm just going to return to normal after the coronavirus pandemic, then we're actually just saying you want to continue the illusion of what is normal, because we cannot accept or allow what was as normal and then expect that to be. And then in reality, I think it's never going to return to normal, so we shouldn't delude ourselves that it's going to be normal. There's millions of people affected by this pandemic right now. I mean, families, children, you know, education, so many things is affected on two polarity ends. So you have the positive side and the negative side. And the negative side is always bigger, it's always more. And if we're gonna ignore that, we're gonna have another wave of something coming that's gonna be something we don't want. And another thing that I realized for myself within this is that I had plans, you know, with creating Earth Haven, with doing communities, with moving myself, but I've postponed and I have taken my time. And suddenly when I was ready, or more or less ready to move, boom, there's a pandemic and you're in quarantine. And now you can't do anything. You have to sit back and you have to breathe and you have to internalize everything that you had as plans. And it's actually quite cool in a way, because you have to reassess, you have to readjust. But here's the uncertain point that I believe and see a lot of people might go into fear about. How long and how far is this going to go? That's what people don't know. And therefore, if you have any plans, if you have any idea of what you're going to do in this world, what if all of it becomes irrelevant? It's too late. That point of it's too late. What if you lose your job tomorrow? What if you lose your security and income tomorrow? What if you're suddenly caught up in riots and uprisings tomorrow? Then all your plans, everything you were holding back on, you were fearful to act on, you didn't want to stand up within, it's now too late.
Specifically all the regret.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in society that will go through regret and shame, as I see it, because that's what I experienced. And I know that I'm not alone in this. And then I look at, why do I go into this? Because first it was 3 weeks, then it's 5 weeks, then it's 6 weeks, then it's 2 months, then it's 3 months. Then you hear that they're talking about October, November, when it might end. Now you're hearing that they have to give everyone possibly a vaccination, 7.7 billion people, before this quarantine can actually end. So it's like, where did I not stand? Where can I self-reflect? Where can I look at, I was justifying or using excuses to move myself, to position myself, and to do what I want to do. Now, this is in relation to me specifically and what I want to do. And everyone obviously has their own points to look at. Now, I just want to share some real-time research, which I did on Facebook. I posted this post. I don't know if you can see it or if the camera can focus on it. But I asked people for real-time feedback on just my friends on Facebook and those who did see this post, who has lost their jobs and who knows of someone that has lost their jobs just with this quarantine time. And I got 103 responses. And what they had to do was they had to put a sad face if they lost their job, and they had to put an angry face if they know of someone. So within this, I got 48 angry faces out of 103 votes, and I got 33 sad faces out of 103 votes, where people are sharing with me also in the comments that they're angry, not just for the one angry emoticon they can put on, but there's 8 people they know of. Now, this is for me quite extensive to see what's happening in this world, because that's just my friends group on Facebook, and that's only the people that did see that post. And you can see it is immense how it's affecting people's lives. And everyone is now going for benefits and welfare, and they're getting this stimulus package in the USA. And there is attempts at solutions. But what I think is what people need to do in general is they need to start using their democracy, their one vote, one person, one vote power. And we need to start actually now, while we have the time, come together and say what it is we see as a solution. What is it that we see as a way forward for us as humanity? Humanity first. It's my jacket. Because if we're just going to sit and wait for the governments to give solutions and not use our constitutions and not use our rights, which we're all uneducated about, to actually move this world forward, then we're going to be waiting for solutions, and we're going to be waiting, and we're still in that waiting process, which I was just experiencing on an individual level and then also now on a global level. How is it that we're looking at directing solutions, directing people, and give us we would like to receive, especially to those now in need? So these are the points that I am looking at and that I am facing, and also sharing my personal videos. So
yeah, I wanted to respond to that as well. And this is also in response to what Marlen shared, in terms of it's about who we are individually as well as collectively, where one of the points I saw for myself is like all these things that you in a way count on and think that will always be there, like your income, like the grocery shops, being able to go outside, has all these variables that we assume will remain a constant forevermore, and suddenly they all fall away, and then suddenly you're like, what do I do? And who am I? Where in the end, there's actually so much that can be taken away from us, and what everyone is left with, really, which is why you come into this world, is your body and your hands and your legs. You can move, you can do things, and you have a voice to speak. You have a voice to communicate. And what is certain is so many things can be taken away, so many freedoms can be taken away, but what we have is ourselves, and we have other people. And what I think what's going to be important is to develop that self-relationship and develop real relationships with other people to be able to work together, because everything else can tumble and fall apart or maybe get better, but there's no guarantee in that. The guarantee is in that we're here right now, and we have a voice, we have bodies, we are capable. What are we going to do with this?
It's fascinating. I had a dream where it was like, in the end, we will all eat our tongues. I couldn't make sense of that, but now that you mentioned, like, we have our voice and our actions and our bodies, it's like, it doesn't matter what goes on in the end. To me, it spoke of that self-accountability in the end. And that's what I meant also with getting distracted with the whole thing and missing out that self-relationship that's so essential. And yes, you can't really relate well to other people unless you are in that self-stability, self-relationship, developing that self-honesty and developing that best version of yourself, which will be surely needed if we want to continue with this kind of projects like Gian was mentioning, or with a sense of self-authority. We cannot do things alone. We have to unite with other people and create those real relationships with that people. And for now, that's something that we can surely work on in this pause of reality, so to speak, first with that self, so that then as people perhaps go popping in our reality and saying, you know, I'm up for uniting in creating this community garden where we can grow our food, or a building project for something, and that there's that certainty of, I am in for this as a self-developed person, or a person that is willing to live that best regardless of the environment, the news, the fear, the paranoia, because that is the kind of character that I would like to live in as a society, you know, people that are working within themselves and working together and learn how to create agreements, which is something that Gian was mentioning and something I see that we still have a long way to go. So perhaps this will take some time to build, to create, but it has to start today. Really, it's not about like, oh, you know, it's 1 month and so forth. It's about how am I using my time already from today, you know, and doing this kind of chats is already placing it out there as a way forward. What in times like this, it might seem simple, but to us, at least for me, it has taken over a decade. You know, I'm not fearful of an illness or so. I'm more like looking at how are we going to push forward the changes that we've been speaking about for so long as a society. Oh, that starts with a self-agreement. Oh, that becomes a community agreement. So I fully agree with that. And it's definitely already like a what to do, how do I direct myself, starting with ourselves. And then as you do that, people start coming up in your reality, so to speak. You start connecting with people in your community that are in the same wavelength, so to speak, that you can start considering working with in that sense. What do you guys say? Therese?
Yeah, something. Okay, you go first, Therese.
Okay. I wanted to jump back a little bit to the dimension of that fear paralysis, because I think that's something that a lot of people are experiencing, myself included, and I have experienced it plenty times in my life. But you know, we're scared of getting the virus. We're scared of what's going to happen to the economy. We're scared of what's in store for the future. What world will there be for our children? But within all of this fear, we have this tendency, like our automatic response to that is to just kind of freeze and go, oh, I'm so scared this is going to happen, and then not do anything. Like we're totally paralyzed by it. Just like with those little fears of all the projects that we want to do, for example, all of goals we have, but maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I won't be able to realize my goals. Maybe I won't be able to, for whatever reason, create it, or someone's going to stop me, or I'm not strong enough. All of those fears that we allow ourselves to kind of remain in this paralysis within. And at a time where fear is being, let's put it bluntly, it's being propagated so widely, so extremely by the government, by media, it's like the perfect opportunity to really face that experience, that moment of what is fear really, and is it something that I need to give all of my power to, so that I don't actually act on anything, that I don't look at solutions, that I don't look at information practically, that I become lost in everything. Because when I allow myself to tumble into that rabbit hole of fear, like I lose all sense of practicality and common sense. All that I can see is that terror and all of the what if bad situations that might happen. And I can't see solutions. I can't talk about solutions. I can't think about solutions, nothing. All that it completely overwhelms me. And with so much of this current state being fear-ridden, I think, yeah, it gives us a great opportunity to live in spite of the fear and prove to ourselves that it's just an experience, an emotional state, and that's all.
I think it's like, forget fear, and us facing our greatest fear, we're facing a enemy that you can't see, you know, a virus. And it's like, it's everywhere, you know, you can't see it. So you don't know, but you do know there's someone dying of it. You do know there's someone infected by it. So it does exist, right? And then it's so easy to use an invisible enemy that does attack and does hurt people to propagate anything, because fear is rampant between that. It's like the boogeyman, you know. But this time it's real. It's like actually there, and it's this tiny thing that can be anywhere at any time.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, it's like there have been these invisible forces and bad things happening, you know, before the coronaviruses. There's other viruses, other diseases that could kill you anytime, you know. Even before all of this, you could have gotten cancer or a heart attack or some other virus. So it's not like you getting sick and dying before was like not on the table. That was always there. And we lived with that uncertainty. And that's also the part where I was saying, where we also went into an invulnerability of like, that's never going to happen to me. And now the coronavirus is saying like, no, it can happen to you. And look, it's happening to your neighbors. It's happening to your family. And also you're going to lose your job. And it's like, all these worst case scenarios are suddenly in your face. It's no longer happening to those other people out there. And even now, if it's happening to those other people out there, you're being impacted by it, because the more people, you know, the more the disadvantaged people are being put under pressure, the more you're going to feel that pressure, because you have these things that they need, so they're going to come after you. And there's no like washing your hands off in this situation where we're literally all in it together, and that's becoming very clear now with this corona point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
And,
that I'd like to add something to that.
No,
That togetherness point, that to me is like, this is what it is, for this calling out of people that say, hey, yeah, you know, I can relate to that. I can sense that there is more to this than what everyone else wants us to believe. This is like this ignition point for those that perhaps were, let's call it, sleeping, not awake or whatever, and they see now further to this and the virus or enemy or the fear and so forth. Like, this will be a breaking point of many things, but let's not make it that breaking point of our own will, decision, courage, strength of our spirit, so to speak, of our life force in essence. That's when any virus, illness, disease, immunologic system goes down. That's not what we want to experience in general. So this is like a calling out for people that can relate to what we're sharing, that are walking also this process, and that say, yes, I want to be that kind of person. I want to see things the way that they are suggesting to look at things, because there is, and there will be much more to learn about, create, discover about ourselves. It's always like an opportunity opening up, that we need to really like take the most that we can from it, because, you know, it might become like the new normal. I have to attend my little kid. So I will leave it at that, just for anyone to keep in contact with us in that sense, if they want.
Okay, let's wrap it up here for now. We can always talk about doing another video next week. So thanks for joining, guys, and thanks for watching. And okay, all right.
We'll reconvene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bye.
Follow the links, whatever they are.